I'm going to call this meeting of the Urbana Planning Commission to order. Clerk, may I please have a roll call?
Mr. Betry? Here. Ms. Bindum? Here. Mr. Fell? Here. Mr. Fitch?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins? Mr. Otto? Here. Ms. Stake? And Mr. Trail?
Here. Let the record reflect that Mr. Hopkins is entering the building. So we do have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Are there, we got some minutes to approve here from the meeting of September 18th. Do we have any? Moved by Mr. Fell. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Bindum. Sure, absolutely.
There was a section of discussion when we were talking about the additional water use for the, I would like it to reflect they gave a number or two in their answer. I would like it to reflect the number that they gave, the staff could pull that from the transcript.
Yeah, I remember that discussion. I don't remember the number.
Very small number.
Right.
So we just moved right on.
Do we know whether that can be reflected in these minutes?
Would it have been reported in the transcript?
Yes.
It would be.
Yes, if you direct us to add those to the minutes, we'll look it up and add them.
So directed. So can we get a vote by voice on the minutes as amended? All in favor of approving the amended minutes?
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes pass. Communications. We have three pieces of communication regarding the first plan case tonight regarding the Central Illinois Mosque and Islamic Center. These are from Patricia Fitzpatrick, Kevin Hunziger, and Gwen Zarbuck of Zarbuck Chiropractic Clinic. Each of these three communications are not in support of the petition, generally on the grounds of increased congestion in the area, increased density, interference with light and air, and insufficient parking, and the sheer size of the request. Don't have any continued public hearings or old business. We do have a new public hearing. This is plan case number CW 2014-01, a request by the Central Illinois Mosque and Islamic Center for a creekway permit to construct a dormitory and gymnasium at 711 West Western Avenue in the R5 medium high density zoning district and the Boneyard Creek district. Mr. Engstrom.
Center. Sorry, pardon me. To install a dormitory and annex building at 711 Western. The dormitory would serve the mosque, which is adjacent at 106 South Lincoln. If you look at Exhibit A, here's kind of an overview of the neighborhood. The existing mosque is right on Lincoln Avenue. And then you can see it's kind of an odd-shaped parcel they have with a parking lot. And the Boneyard Creek runs along the south of that parcel. And then that parcel goes all the way through to Busey Avenue. And directly across Busey Avenue is 711 Western, which is currently contains a vacant building and a lot of vacant space. You'll notice the Boneyard Creek also runs along the southern portion of that site. The purpose for this meeting is to approve a creekway permit to allow the construction on this site. It would be for a 38-student dorm with some small classrooms, kitchen area, and a multi-purpose room/gymnasium. It would be a 3-story building plus a mezzanine level. And a little background, this case is actually a reapproval of a slightly modified plan that was approved by Plan Commission in 2011. We'll talk about that in a little minute. Pardon me. So this property is adjacent to the Boneyard Creek, which puts it in the Boneyard Creek overlay zoning district. That the BYC, the Boneyard Creek District, was established in 1979 per the 1978 Boneyard Creek Plan. The idea of the district was to protect water quality, remediate flooding issues, and to provide access to the creek. The Boneyard Creek Overlay District therefore requires a review of any building permits to be issued within the district. And most of the time, it's a minor administrative review, but the Boneyard Creek District provides for some bonus provisions in order to kind of alleviate the requirements of the district. And if the applicants make use of those bonus provisions, then the Creekway Commissioner and Administrative Review Team generally forward those on to Plan Commission for a formal review. And this would be the final level of review. The Commission could issue the Creekway permit tonight. And just a little bit on the bonus provisions that they are requesting for this development. They're asking for 12 feet of extra height, some reduced yards along Western Avenue and Busey Avenue, a transfer of development rights, which would include a transfer of allowed floor area and location of parking. And I'll discuss those in detail in just a minute here. Let's run through our exhibits. The first exhibit is our current land use map. You see the mosque sites and the parcel in question are outlined in red here. The area is generally has a lot of multifamily dwellings, but there are duplex dwellings, including directly north and directly east of the subject site here. Otherwise, a lot of multifamily dwellings. I wanted to point out another exhibit which I handed out tonight, which would be surrounding building heights. Just to look at some of the heights of buildings in the area. Directly next to the site would be some single-story and two-story buildings. But if you zoom out a little bit, you see 3.5-story and 2-story and 3-story buildings in the area in general. Zoning for the site. The site is zoned R5. Just check. Yes, R5, medium high density multifamily. It's been zoned that way for quite some time. Most of the parcels to the west, south, and east are also zoned R5, medium high density multifamily. And to the north, parcels are zoned B2, general business or neighborhood business arterial, because they also front on, or they're near Springfield Avenue, that corridor. And turn into the comprehensive plan. Future land use map shows the area to be both campus mixed use and multifamily. The area along Springfield and along Lincoln Avenue is campus mixed use. And the site itself is shown as multifamily in our 2005 comprehensive plan. Okay, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about Western Avenue. Western Avenue is interesting because It's actually an old rail line. Here it is. So Western Avenue is a very narrow right-of-way. It's a 26-foot right-of-way with, I think, 17-foot wide pavement. A lot of the homes are built close to the right-of-way. At least on the north side, they're closer than they are on the south side. Let's see if I got another photo. So here's another view a little further down Western Avenue. You can see it's a very narrow right-of-way. It kind of looks like an alley. It kind of functions like an alley. People put their trash cans on it and leave them there. Cars back out onto it from parking spaces. And those parking spaces are in required front yards, which in general is not allowed, but in this area, it's historically been that way. And some of these parking spaces even encroach into the right-of-way. So it's a bit of an odd situation, a street. It's not a full width right-of-way. Okay. So let's look at the site a little more closely. The parcel area for the 7-Eleven Western, the parcel is 14,000 square feet and some change. But part of the bonus provisions being requested include transfer of development rights, which are allowed in the Boneyard Creek district. So through those transfer development rights provisions, we consider the entire site to be one zoning lot, one campus, one zoning lot. So the mosque site, in addition to the dormitory annex site, is all one zoning lot. So looking at that total zoning lot, the area is 69,952 square feet. So they've got some room to work with. Looking at the site in total, on the west side, there's the existing mosque. It has a prayer area. It has a few apartments for the people who work there. There's also an existing parking lot, which is the white area on the north and some of these hatched spaces. This hatch to the south here is a future parking expansion, which they're submitting as part of their site plan. So the plan in general is to transfer 13 required parking spaces from the proposed dorm annex building to this site here. And this is something that was actually requested by Plan Commission in their previous approval in 2011. The previous approval, they had been showing the required parking actually on site, backing out onto Western or parallel in front of Western. But after a while, Plan Commission had decided it might be better to have them over here, which was what was eventually approved. So the parking lot currently has required spaces for the for the mosque, the 53 required spaces, and is planned to be expanded to accommodate the additional 13 spaces for the dorm. Upon the expansion, they will also need to do some more stormwater detention. It's not shown on this site plan. The Boneyard Commissioner has requested that you make it a condition of approval that they provide for that additional stormwater capacity on the mosque side of things here. Let's see. Just a little bit about that previous approval. It was in 2011. The Boneyard Creek Commissioner, the zoning administrator, and the city engineer, those are the three people who review Boneyard Creekway permits. They reviewed the previous approval of the previous site plan, and because of the extent of the bonus provisions, they requested that they be forwarded to Plan Commission for final approval. Plan Commission voted 3-1 to approve the site plan after a couple of modifications. And so since that time, what's happened, the mosque was not quite ready to pull the trigger on construction, and the approval actually lapsed in the previous, in the last 3 years. So they have, since that time, they've completed fundraising and they are ready to go. And they've hired a new architect. They are, they have reworked the site plan slightly. I'll talk about the differences in a little minute here. But they are ready for another Boneyard Creekway permit in order to allow for construction of the project now. Just a preview of the differences in site plans. The plan that was previously approved by Plan Commission, I can show it here. Here's the 2011 plan. You can see it looks very similar with the parking locations. The main difference is that previously there was a handicap accessible parking space which was to be on right on the dorm annex site, accessed off of Busey Avenue. That site has, or that parking space is no longer required to be on the site. The applicants have spoken with the state of Illinois, who controls such things, and the state will allow for them to have it across the street. The other difference is there's a slight reduction in setbacks. The previous site plan had shown some reduced setbacks, had requested reduced setbacks as a bonus provision, and they are asking to slightly reduce those even further, just along Busey Avenue. What was approved in the site plan was a 16-foot setback, and they're currently requesting a 15-foot setback. Okay. I discussed a little bit about the site before. It's 3 stories with a mezzanine level. There will be a large multipurpose room / gymnasium. It will be basically for the mosque community. And it will also have the dormitory rooms to house up to 38 college students. It'll be a community gathering space for mosque attendees. There will be a couple of small classrooms, and there will be a kitchen and dining area as well. Okay. So we've talked about the parking. For the parking requirements, the 13 additional spaces are required because of the dormitory use. It's 1 space for every 3 students. The otherwise, the additional or the ancillary uses in the dorm annex, all those parking required spaces are covered in the existing mosque parking. The mosque has told us they will not have services at the same time they have events in the dorm annex. They currently have 50 spaces required for their mosque prayer area. So when those 50 spaces are not in use, they can be used for other uses in the dormitory annex. Another thing to mention is the applicants are going to build to LEED standards and are going to pursue university certification for the housing. They'll be also providing a multi-use path easement along the Boneyard Creek, which is an easement to allow the city to construct a multi-use path if we choose, or when we choose to do so. It's in the Boneyard Creek plan that we do that. It might take a while, and we're not currently sure if we'll even construct it on the north side or the south side. But basically, the mosque is providing this easement, which is something we ask for whenever we issue a creekway permit. And the building will be set back 25 feet from the center line of the creek for that easement, and also to alleviate flooding impacts. Looking at the other exhibits provided in the application, here is a view of the open space on the property. The open space provided on the Dormanic site is actually conforming. They only need open space ratio 0.3, but combined with the entire campus, they have plenty of open space. They have 0.71, and they're only required to have 0.3. Taking a look at the floodway, this map is kind of hard to read. So the creek runs across the bottom here, and the creekway is within this red line. So the creekway is the general path of travel of water in a flood situation. The flood plain actually extends up all the way to this blue-lined area. So it extends from the creek all the way up to here, all the way, kind of goes along there. So you can see the parcel, most of the parcel is in the floodplain as it exists now. So this is a bit of a challenge for the site. In order to remediate this, the applicants are proposing to elevate the building. So the building itself will be above the floodplain. The first floor will have no residential uses, so it can be down there near the floodway. But the entire building will be elevated, and the new floodplain is shown by this green line. So it will now go up to here, and it will no longer go up to Western at this area, at least not on the site. Water could back up to this portion of Western, depending on flood conditions. And so in order to provide for this moved earth, they are proposing to have some compensatory storage beneath the building. So here's kind of a schematic side view of the building. In this diagram, left is to the south, right is to the north. The creek is down here on the left. And you can see the whole building will be elevated to allow for the flood plain to fill up if necessary. And there's additional compensatory storage in this area, which basically compensates for the volume of water displaced by the development and by the new footprint of the building. Okay, I think we've seen that. The site plan, looking a little closer, the main entrance is on Western, at the corner. Secondary entries, the stairs here on Busey. People with cars will park on the mosque site, will walk up to Western, will cross Busey, and then come in the main entry. There's a handicap accessible wheelchair ramp here on Western. Additionally, there's bicycle parking. There will be a screened area for refuse and recycling, set back a little bit from Western. There will be a couple sidewalks which lead to emergency exits on both the east side and the west side. And this one, I think they're both accessible. And there's also a stairwell in the northeast corner of the building. There will be an elevator in the kind of northwest corner. Let's look here. That's the site plan here. Okay. Here's the landscape plan. Landscape plan shows trees and landscaping. Along the Boneyard Creek, they show the multi-purpose path to be installed, and it is to be installed by the city. We're only requiring them to provide the easement in order to compensate for the bonus provisions. And that's something that the Boneyard Creek Plan and the Boneyard Creek District Overlay District call for. Zoom out a little. So they're showing some prairie plantings along the side of the building and along the future pathway. In the distant future, the Boneyard Creek itself will be opened up. It's currently overgrown, but when the path comes through, it'll be opened up and become more of a neighborhood amenity. He's also showing the proposed tree locations. And just a quick view of the floor plan. The main floor, as I mentioned, has the large the gymnasium multipurpose room. There's a kitchen and dining area and a little office area for staff. 2 stairwells and an elevator. Second floor, or the mezzanine, I'm sorry, provides classrooms. There's some small classrooms, meeting rooms, 4 of those, and some additional seating here for people or students or the community to hang out. There's also a balcony which will provide a view of the mosque right across the street. The 3rd and 4th floors have identical site plans. These are the dormitory sections. Each floor has spaces for 19 students in double and single rooms, along with laundry facilities and a common room, a small kitchen area, and more balconies you can see. And here is a rendering of what the building will look like. This side on the right side is facing Busey. On the left side is facing Western. Okay, so let's discuss the bonus provisions a little bit. There's a few bonus provisions they're requesting, and that's to compensate for both being pushed away from the creek and providing extra stormwater detention, those types of things. The first is building heights. In this case, the applicant's asking for an additional 12 feet of height, so the building would be a total of 47 feet tall. Maximum height in the R5 multifamily district is 35 feet. Therefore, it's a 12-foot bonus to allow for the extra floor. One of the things I forgot to mention about having the extra floor and extra floor area ratio, the previously approved site plan, the architect had assumed they would be able to provide at least a partial basement for a lot of utilities. The new architect did a little more research and talked to the state Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and it was determined that they will not be able to build any basement within the floodplain. So that really pushed up a lot of their utility and storage space out of the non-FAR areas into the areas that now count for FAR. So that's part of the reason they're requesting the extra floor area and why they need the extra height. Setbacks. Go back to the site plan real quick. The applicant is requesting to have a 15-foot setback along both Busey and Western Avenue. Along both of these streets, the required setback is the average of the block face. On Busey, that average block face setback is only 16.5 feet. So this is just a 1.5 foot encroachment along Busey Avenue. Along Western, however, that block face, there's several structures and some are set quite far back. So the average along Western is 25 feet. So in order to have in order to have a 15-foot setback, they're requesting a 10-foot encroachment as a bonus provision. And that's the same as they had requested previously in 2011 and Plan Commission had granted. Parking, we discussed that. Part of the bonus provision allowance is to have parking off-site within 600 feet of the property. They're proposing to have all 13 required parking spaces right across the street in their mosque parking lot. So there will be a total of 66 spaces, 50 for the mosque, 3 for the apartments in the mosque, and 13 for the dormitory use. Floor area. So the floor area maximum for this district is 0.9. That means of the total site area, only 90% may be built. The building on this parcel alone would have a higher FAR. I think it would be well over 1. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have that exact number. So they cannot do it without a bonus provision. So the bonus provision allows them to transfer allowable floor area from their mosque site to this property. And they're requesting to take advantage of that provision to basically to move, 11,979 square feet of floor area would be taken away from the mosque site and given to this property. So these last two bonus provisions, they're really something that they're transfer of development rights, basically. So in order to make sure these rights stay with 711 Western, we're going to ask that you require the applicant to record these transferred development rights with the Champaign County recorder. So basically anyone who looks up the deed for, or does a title search for 711 Western or the mosque site will be able to see that those parking spaces as indicated and that additional floor area are, they now legally or will legally belong to 711 Western. And really the mosque is planning to stay, so we don't foresee them selling off this site in the future, but it is a protection we're asking for them to make. Okay, consideration. So the Boneyard Creek Commissioner and administrative team reviewed the site plan, and they used a couple, there's 6 factors that they considered when they reviewed the site plan. First one, whether the Creekway permit is compatible with the Boneyard Creek Master Plan as amended from time to time in a manner consistent with the comprehensive plan. So the Boneyard Creek Master Plan is from 1978, and it doesn't really provide a very fine-grained analysis or recommendation for the whole creek. It covers the whole creekway from Champaign all the way up to the saline ditch, and it breaks the creek into segments. This property is in what's called the Thornburn segment, named after the old Thornburn Center. And this for this segment, it basically calls for student housing. It called for open space along the creek right on Lincoln Avenue, but with the construction of the mosque, that's no longer a plan. And really, what we look to now is the comprehensive plan. So instead of looking at the general recommendations on a site-by-site basis, we look at the future land use recommendations in the comprehensive plan. And that plan was put together, when it was put together, people took all the previous neighborhood plans, and Boneyard Creek plan was also incorporated into the comprehensive plan. So this first criteria, we look at the 78 plan, but we mostly look at the comprehensive plan. Second criteria is whether the location and size and type of the proposed use is appropriate to the objectives of the Creek District. Third criteria, whether the proposed use is compatible with the area in which it's located. We mentioned before there's a lot of apartment buildings in the area, and some other smaller non-conforming properties as well. Whether the proposed use would be compatible with the spirit of the underlying zoning district. In this case, the underlying zoning district is R5, medium high density multifamily, so it is compatible. Whether there are adequate community services to support the proposed use. There is street access, water, sewer, public school facilities, even though they won't be used. That's a yes. And finally, whether the design of the proposal as to size, height, and open space allows for adequate access to light and air to surrounding streets, parkways, and properties. It is 47 feet high, but it is set back from the streets 15 feet, and it is set back from the creek, and the future proposed pathway along the creek, it'll be set back 25 feet from the creek. So on September 8th, the administrative team, including the Boneyard Creek Commission, held a conference. They discussed the proposed layout of the site and parking. It was pointed out at that meeting that additional stormwater detention will need to be provided for the site. Additional stormwater detention will need to be provided at the mosque site in order to accommodate the expanded parking. The applicant's architect noted that residents, if approved, residents could move in spring 2016. They're aiming for university certified housing and LEED standards. The Boneyard Creek Commissioner had a concern about the surface of the ground below the building, since it is elevated slightly. He wanted to make sure that will be protected from erosion. The applicant's engineer stated that the surface will be either covered with rock or riprap or something else that will not wash away and will be protected by erosion. Additionally, there will be prairie grasses planted around the edge of the building to protect it. And then finally, the city engineer discussed the easement for the potential multi-use path, and that it's not known at this time if that path would be on the north side of the creek or the south side. At the end of the discussion, the administrative group voted 3-0 to recommend that the Urbana Plan Commission approve the development as proposed, including the requested bonus provisions, subject to these following conditions: approval by the IDNR, construction in conformity with the site plan, conformance with all required building codes and engineering requirements, installation of landscaping and open space as shown on the submitted landscape plan, dedication of the multipurpose path as shown on the site plan, dedication of parking to be recorded with the county recorder, dedication of the floor area transfer to be recorded with the county recorder. The plan approval shall be valid for 1 year, but we would recommend allowing a 1-year extension of this period upon written request if necessary. Surface below the ground surface below the building shall be protected against erosion and shall be aesthetically screened at the edge of the building. And finally, there shall be additional stormwater detention installed per city standards at 106 South Lincoln in order to accommodate for the additional paved parking. So that is the administrative recommendation. The applicants are here to answer any questions, and I'd be happy to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Engstrom. Do we have any questions for Mr. Engstrom? Mr. Fell?
This is going to be kind of an offshoot of what happened last time in my question concerning the parking and the floor area ratio. Is the petitioner, although I know they'll say it's never their intent, they could sell this. And so if they sell this, as recorded in the deed, they have to give away some of their parking and some of their lot area on the adjacent lot. But what's that going to be? Can they give away the lot area fronting on Western Avenue? Does it have to be adjacent to the building?
So they're not giving away lot. Well, they are giving away lot area for the parking, and those are the spaces designated on the site plan here.
But if they sell it, they have to bring it into conformance with FAR.
Right.
So they're going to need some more site.
So for a transfer of development rights, they're not calling out any specific lot area. Basically, it's kind of an overall concept. 11,979 square feet of developable lot area are transferred to 711 Western Avenue. So it's not really specific.
So Western Avenue gets to pick what 11,000 square feet they want out of their lot, or?
Libby, did you want to say something?
I just had another comment on the parking, not on the FAR transfer.
Could we stick with this question first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it's right. So it's an abstract floor area. So it's just whenever if they want to build more building on the mosque site, 106 South Lincoln, we would look it up and we would see they would only have X amount of lot or floor area available to build.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's not quite the gist of my
Okay, I'm sorry.
question. Well, if the mosque sells this lot,
Mm-hmm.
that it is out of conformance with parking and FAR, correct?
No. Those parking and FAR rights are part of the deed for the annex site.
So they can't sell the lot?
They
I mean, I
can
don't
sell the lot,
understand.
but when they sell the lot, those parking spaces and that additional floor area, conceptual additional floor area, go along with it. So that would be considered in the selling price.
But don't we have to know which floor, what area that is? It's just a nebulous amount of square feet they get?
Basically, yes, because it's not a one-to-one transfer, because the floor area requirement is only 0.9.
No, I understand that, but
Uh,
they have to remain in conformance with floor area ratio if they sell it. How do they do that?
Mr. Hopkins?
If I understand the floor area transfer,
Okay.
at the moment, the mosque site has X plus 11,900, whatever, FAR rights. And the dorm site has X, what it wants, well, so Y, that it wants to build minus 11,000. That 11,000 is going to be taken away from the rights that the mosque site has and permanently assigned to the dorm site. So it's not about property or physical objects on the mosque site. It's what their future floor area rights are. And they've been reduced.
Mr. Trail?
I guess along the same lines, does this transfer represent an obstacle to sale of the annex site in the future as a standalone property?
It's not really an obstacle. It just complicates the matter a little bit.
So any sale could not be completed until they had resolved, I'm not sure who would make the decision, about the status of these transferred rights. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yeah, so upon approval and upon construction, we'll require them to record these transferred rights before we can issue the certificate of occupancy. So at that time, the rights are transferred. So if any future sale happens, the rights would be sold along with the physical ground of 7-Eleven Western. Does that kind of answer your question?
Ms. Tyler, could you shed some light, please?
Well, I can try. I mean, the way I view it is this is the TDR is a benefit that's available in the zone under the zoning regulations, but it's also with this approval and encumbrance on both lots. And that's part of the recording. So to split the two lots would create some difficulties. The other point I wanted to make is if Busey wasn't there, this would be a zoning lot because it would be on one block, and they wouldn't need to do the TDR because we average FAR on one zoning lot. Also, in terms of the provision of parking, I want to clarify that the proposal does meet the minimum parking requirements in terms of number of spaces of the zoning ordinance. And our zoning ordinance does allow off-street parking in any zone to be within 600 feet. And we know that. We provide, people take advantage of that provision quite often. And we allow agreements between property owners. And why do we do that? Because especially in the center of the community, parking's a premium, and we want to encourage that it be used optimally. So we do have several uses in the campus area that have some or potentially all of their parking off-site within that 600 feet. So I don't know if that helps. You know, it is, the TDR is available in this zone, and this is what we're applying here, but I also want to point out that it does create a form of encumbrance on both properties. And if these properties were on one block, you wouldn't even need to use that mechanism. So I don't know if that helps, but.
Thank you. Further questions? Mr. Otto?
I'd just like to conceptually clarify that there's not any specific FAR. So for the sake of discussion, if on the west side of the mosque had 30,000 square feet FAR, They're currently using 13,722, so they've got about 16,000 left. They transfer 11,000 to the lot across the street. They've got 6,000 left wherever they want to build. Doesn't matter. They've got 6,000 left. I mean, it's probably more than that, but that's all that's happening. And the deed would show that they have lost FAR. They no longer have got the 90% available. And then the other thing that I think was confusing is they have an easement for parking rights, but if the lot were sold, there would not be a transfer of title to the land for those parking lots. The deed for the west side would simply show that the owners of the east side have got an easement that allows them to park cars. Is that correct? There
Yeah.
would not be a further separation of the title.
Yes, you are exactly right. They wouldn't split the lot right there. It's still all one lot for the mosque site. It's just an easement which shows where that parking is generally to be provided.
Further questions, Mr. Trail?
One last one, just to make sure that I'm getting all of this. If they sold the mosque, the western portion, the mosque site separately, the new owner would not have the full, right, the total, assuming no for future zoning changes and things like that, they would still own, a new owner of only a portion would not somehow get back that.
Correct.
Right. It's gone, it's been transferred, and the mosque site now has a new permanently reduced building. All right.
Yes. Mr. Fell, did you have one final thing?
The plans as shown of the building, and well, as described, as basically being a three-story building. And I think some of the, especially the correspondence we have, objects mostly to the bulk of the building. So I guess my question is, when on your additional map here where you have the stories of the building, did you measure the heights of those buildings? Because I guess the gist of my question statement is that even though this is the proposed building is a three-story building, it's really 4 stories tall. And
Right.
so it's kind of in a way a little bit of a misrepresentation for your map to give stories of these buildings that are adjacent to it, when that's not really the issue. I think it's the height and the bulk of the building rather than how many floors it is.
You're correct. We did not measure the heights of the buildings. That would be too hard to do. We did just provide a general map to show you how many stories each of these buildings are. But one thing I would add is that a lot of these 2-story buildings do go up higher, and the height of a building, allowed height of a building, is to the middle of a pitched roof line, so, or halfway to the top if it's a pitched roof. So what we could call a 35-foot building, the tip of the roof could go up above 40 feet easily. And then, so this building is going to have a flat roof. It's only going to go to 47 feet. So the 47 feet is the absolute height. It's not, there's no additional pitched area as you would see with a pitched roof.
Ms. Tyler?
I did just want to make a note on the height, just to clarify. The 47 feet is the same height that was presented and approved in 2011. And I wanted to note that in the Boneyard District, that's the maximum. That additional 12 feet is the maximum bonus height. So they've hit that maximum, but that is the allowance. That's a recognized allowance in the district that you could add. So I wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Further questions? Thank you, Mr. Engstrom. Now, I'll open the public hearing and give you a brief rundown of the procedures. The petitioner will address this first and can present evidence. Other proponents of the petitioner, supporters of the petitioner, may present evidence. Opponents with a material interest in the case may present evidence and ask questions of the petitioner through me that I will relay. Others may speak. Staff may have additional things to say. Petitioner may then offer rebuttal and summarize their case, and in which case we'll close the public hearing. The Plan Commission will discuss the case and may vote on the case. So if the petitioner would like to approach, anyone representing the petitioner would like to approach us, and state your name and sign the sheet, if you would.
My name is Brant Muncaster. I work for Gorski Reefsteak Architects, and I'm representing CIMIC here.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we'd just like to thank Jeff Engstrom and Libby Tyler for all of their help on this project. We've been working with them extensively to work out a lot of these issues so that they conform with all the ordinances and the codes. And we've worked with them quite a lot, and we think we've come up with a very reasonable plan that deals with all of the issues. I don't really have anything further to say beyond that because I think Jeff's presentation covered pretty much all the major notes of the project. So if you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the petitioner? No, sir. Oh, yeah, we do. Mr. Trail, sorry.
I have a quick question about the south side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be open on the bottom? Is that since the building's going to be above ground height, it's going to be open, or it's going to be closed in but a crawl space?
The whole building will be elevated, and the reason that it's elevated is because if you remember the contours of the floodplain, since we're changing that, we need to make sure we allow the water to come in and occupy a similar volume. If we didn't allow it open underneath, the water would spread to the adjacent properties, which wouldn't be good for them. So we open up the underneath it, so the flood waters come in, and we're basically comparable to what the property would be undeveloped and as it is right now.
So the gist of my question, though, is if I'm standing and looking at the south elevation,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure exactly how tall it would be, but I could literally walk under the building if I were short enough.
Yeah, if you were short, it'll be 3 or 4 feet, and the idea is to put prairie grass to basically cover that.
And this
area.
is literally to allow flow of water underneath it in the event of a flood. So you don't,
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything further? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone else care to speak on behalf of the petition? Does anyone care to speak not in support of the petition? Sir. If you could just state your name and sign the sheet, that would be great.
Great, thank you. My name is Charles Lozar. I am an architect, and I own the building to just the south of the site with the big 3.5 stories and the blue roof. So I'm real easy to find. I have a couple of comments, and I just want to make them briefly. The first is just a comment about the mosque, not related to this building at all, but it's a chance to thank them for a public offer that they made when I had a devastating fire in a building that I also own. The call I got offering help that horrible evening came from the imam of the mosque, and I thank them publicly for that. I had previously made some objections to this building that still stand, and I
I don't have them numbered here, but first of all, many of the objections I had previously have been somewhat corrected in the new plans. So I'll deal with them one by one. First is the high density and the traffic in and out of there. It actually is pretty much a lot of traffic down Busey, and since I'm there almost every day on Busey, I can observe it. So this is something that concerns me. Another comment is the question of, I guess, access. It was the last comment in your paper about access to the sun. If we refer to the north side of the site, where on Western we have 712 West Western, with a 47-foot high building, that particular property will never see sunlight. It will always be in shadow. Mr. Fell's comment about the sale of that property and the property rights can be addressed in another way about parking. Very simply, that nobody is going to buy that property unless they're willing to also buy an equivalent amount of adjacent parking. Very simply because there's a liability issue for your people that are parking on somebody else's property, even if you have transferred rights. What happens if a car hits another, hits a student, etc.? So if you look at the plan, probably the person who would ever buy property at 7-Eleven would have to buy the adjacent two properties to the east in order to meet the requirements for parking. I must also make a comment that the architect who has designed this has done a very nice job. One concern I had that does relate to the floodplain and the solution to the bottom of the building is that is a very, very large area underneath the building, unexposed to sunlight, even with riprap, and at the height becomes a shelter for animals next to the prairie grass. So I don't know what you do about that, but having prairie grass, I can see a lot of rabbits in the spring. Another comment is on the question of money. Does this property, because it's part of a religious organization, then fall off of the tax rolls? Is it tax exempt?
I believe it would, yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
So essentially, that's a property that represents about $30,000 per year in tax revenue for the city of Urbana that you're taking off the rolls. Those are my comments, and thank you.
Thank you. Have any questions for Mr. Lozar? No. Thank you, sir. All right. I'll come back to you. You're going to speak. I'm continuing with people who are not in support, and then we'll come back to the petitioner. You'll have the last word. Sir. If you could state your name and sign the sheet, that would be most appreciated.
My name is John C. Marlin, 2203 Boudreaux, Urbana. I was at the prior hearing, and I might mention I just got off an airplane not very long ago, and I'm seriously jet lagged, so if I get my directions mixed up, that's why. In 1976, I bought the property at 712 West Western, which is the one referred to as will never see sunlight again. And that whole block, as you probably know, is quite an interesting block because it had the interurban railway, and the fill issue of the old boneyard floodplain, which makes some of the ground a little bit unstable. You need a deeper foundation, and then the sheet pile. So that's always been an awkward block, or two blocks, if you will. And I've always imagined someday it would all be developed into one big unit, possibly by closing the 17-foot wide street. Be that as it may, we're where we are today. And I think you can see from the prior hearing and this hearing, this property and trying to put a building on it of this magnitude has been more than a tortured process. There have been quite a few changes made, particularly with parking and some of the designs and the setbacks and moving things around. It's got a lot to do with what I believe is the fact that this building is too big for the property. It's too high. That property really can't support it. That's something that it's probably a matter of opinion more than anything else. So I won't dwell on that other than to agree with essentially all of my neighbors who've said the same thing. And I think most of the issue there goes to the concept of putting a gymnasium 2 stories tall inside what was originally characterized as a dormitory. I don't know why anyone wants to do that, but I think that's the crux of the problem, is trying to put a gymnasium in what was a dormitory. And if you recall last hearing, it was stated by at least 3 people, and you can review the tapes for the mosque, that this facility would be for the students living there. That was when parking was a big issue. Okay, so the 3 concerns I want to raise tonight that I hope at least some of them become part of any recommendation if this is approved, as the staff seems to think would be a good idea. I was particularly struck by the balconies. In my opinion, they're too big and awkward, plus they're going to make more shadow. But aside from that, the record of the Boneyard Commission meeting, the architect's representative stated that they might put air compressors for air conditioners on those balconies. Now, I used to chair the State Pollution Control Board, so I very much appreciate the pain you people have to go through making decisions. But I can assure you that 2 of our worst problems were odor and noise. Noise is frequently associated with fans, compressors, and air conditioners. Given that my property or my area of concern is on the north side along with Zarbuck Clinic, if people put compressors and air conditioning units or other things that make a lot of noise on those balconies, you've basically got a megaphone set up shoving that noise directly into what currently are relatively small properties and will significantly impact any future additional larger building that goes in. So please make some requirement that air compressors and other noise-making devices be located on the roof with shielding or on the side of the building with the most distance from other residences, which would probably be the Busey Street side or the back of the building facing the Boneyard. I think that's a very important thing, probably the easiest one to do. I've got some concerns about the garbage site. I don't know how they plan to get the trucks in and out, but remember that street is a total of 17 feet wide. I lived in that building for many years, and I've managed it for almost 40. And I've had many times when big trucks making deliveries or backing up have had a lot of difficulty missing the corner of the building or a car in the parking lot there. So I'm hoping that the garbage access is at an angle so a truck can easily back in off the street without getting on the private sidewalk or the adjacent parking lot or the front yards. I'm sure that can be handled easily, but it's something that somebody better consider before it's too late. I also point out that snow can be a problem. Many of the original buildings there, the porches are like 5 feet from the edge of the street, if you won't even call it a street. So in fact, in some of them they're 3 feet. So it would be a good idea not to just let somebody plow that willy-nilly, because they'll literally block the tenants in. They won't be able to get the doors open. So that's the most I wanted to say. I would point out, though, in the earlier presentation, it was pointed out that cars tend to park perpendicular to the street and sometimes actually encroach on the right-of-way, the city right-of-way. I would point out that when I bought my building and all the other buildings until the last few years when a new duplex was built and an addition was put on the building down by Kohler, none of the cars had to encroach because all of the buildings had enough space alongside the building for the cars to pull up well clear of the sidewalk and the street. But the city, for some reason, has let people park in the right-of-way up till now. So I think that covers the main concern I have, other than that it's too big for the site. But please take care of that noise issue, or it will be coming back to haunt somebody for many years to come. I've been there, done that. And my last comment would be, in terms of a path along the Boneyard, we might have a near-term opportunity to go from Lincoln Avenue to Busey on that new right-of-way if this passes, because that's a long block along Lincoln, and that would give good access to the new mosque annex from Lincoln and the mosque itself. So with that, let's see, I guess the last thing I didn't note was the way that building is laid out with the balconies and things, it may be a hindrance to some future plan for the entire area. That's just another minor consideration. That is a very narrow spot. So thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to speak not in support of the petition? Any others wish to be heard? Now, petitioner, you please may approach again and answer some of the questions that are brought up and summarize your case. You can both feel free. Thank you, and if you could state your name if you're new to the table, that would be appreciated for the minutes.
Again, my name is Brant Muncaster.
And my name is Mir Ali.
Thank you, sir. Proceed whenever you're ready.
Okay, you want to say something on the technical?
So one of the previous gentlemen said that the building to the north will never see the light of day. I would like to say that the two buildings would be 43 feet apart, and so while they will be in shadow more than they would without any building there, it's not going to be as much as never seen the light of day. So I'd like to just make sure that's pointed out. We have talked with our client about the opening underneath the building, and we plan to put screens in there to keep animals out, something with a gate on that can be have maintenance performed inside of it. We understand that the balconies will create a little more of a shadow, but they're not actually that big, and the benefit that they give to the people in the annex building to be able to come out and sit outside, I think we can all appreciate having a home or apartment that has a balcony off of it. So I think that's it for me. Do you want
to? Good evening. I was listening to the two gentlemen before us who talked here, and they also appeared last time in 2011. and brought up some of the same issues or similar issues. And there were intense discussions. The minutes of the meetings, of those meetings, are still there somewhere in the record. So these are some of them are just repeats from the last time. But I appreciate Mr. Lojar's comments on a couple of important things, and also Mr. Marlin's comments. I would like to respond to that. I think the issue of traffic, we have dealt with intensively last time, and it was resolved through thorough discussions. And I think it should not be an issue right now. But we take his comments, actually both of their comments, very seriously, and we'll make sure that everything is carried out properly. And we are very watchful about the traffic, even in the mosque. We have some person manager who looks around and see if somebody has parked illegally or even within our own parking lot. So we are very watchful about that. And I rest assured that there should not be any problem with traffic. Regarding access to the site and sunlight that Mr. Lojar pointed out, I think Brent Monkster already mentioned, and this was also brought up last time. And usually for a building of this height, architects don't do a sun and shadow study unless it is a tall building or high-rise building. And also the sun keeps on shifting positions, so it's not going to be big shadow all the time. You can even have a very large tree that can cast shadow. So this is not a, major issue in my opinion. So I agree with what he said. And about the tax laws that Mr. Lojar mentioned, we pay taxes for the apartments that's part of the mosque. There are a couple of apartments there, and we pay taxes for that. So I'm assuming that for this new development, for the student housing, we have to pay taxes. And in fact, I checked with that on behalf of CIMIC, and they said, I think from the city, from the taxation department or whatever that is, they said that you have to pay taxes. So I assume we will be paying taxes. I think those were the main comments by Mr. Lojar, and I respect his comments. And then Mr. Marlin, his comments about the railway thing, I think last time this was discussed, and Barnes Clancy, who were the civil engineers last time, they discussed this thoroughly with the Plan Commission. And so anyway, he just brought it up again, and he said it's too big. Now, we have many large buildings in this area, as was pointed out. Mr. Engstrom mentioned that and showed. It's a kind of, we are very close to the University of Illinois campus, and there are many, many large buildings around. Even Mr. Lojar's building, that's a multi-story apartment. So I personally think that this will be a very elegant building, and as you saw in the perspective, it will actually beautify this area. Right now, if you look around, you will see that most of the buildings, they are not, they were built much earlier, many years ago, I understand. There have been no new developments. So this is something that will really increase the beauty of that whole site. That's my opinion on that. And regarding the gymnasium, we conceived it as a gymnasium and the student housing together, not separately. So the gymnasium idea did not come on its own as an afterthought. They were together, and the reason is we have all these young people, the students. We wanted them to be in that community environment and be physically active. And we can also use the gymnasium for multi-purpose activities that we may have from time to time. So that was the basic idea. So yes, it has increased the height, but we are not exceeding the permitted height of the city. with that variance of 12 feet. So that should not be an issue. And the mechanical units on the balcony, we are still in the process of studying this. We have not, I think the architect are still discussing this with the mechanical engineer. But we will take his comments, Mr. Marlin's comments, very seriously. And if we think that it will be noisy or it will create any kind of disturbance to anybody around, we may consider the other option, which is placing the mechanical units on the roof. So we are still discussing this. The reason we were thinking of this is because it has certain benefits, and I think you can maybe explain that why we are thinking along that line to put them in the balconies. Can you?
So part of this project is for us to meet some of the LEED standards and get LEED certified. And there are many ways that I don't know how familiar you are with LEED, but there's a whole checklist from the site to the building to every part of the project that you can achieve certain points to actually get to a certain level of LEED certification. So one of them is the efficiency of your mechanical systems. So at this point, we were considering mechanical units for each individual unit, and that might require to have a condenser on a balcony. And if we put them up on the roof, that requires more refrigerant line to travel up and down, and so that will decrease the efficiency of the mechanical system. I should also point out that before the issue was really even brought up, we had talked with the client about, if we did do something like that, we would screen it from the surrounding area, so that at that point it wasn't necessarily the sound, but it was just the visual appearance of it. But it could also function to dissipate the noise that would come from any such unit. And these would be modern, brand new machines that, not like a 20-year-old machine that's sitting outside rattling away. They would add noise, but it wouldn't be near as bad as maybe what we're thinking for a condensing unit outside.
And finally, I would like to say that I think our neighbors will be glad once this is built, because this will be a really good building. And I think we are very conscious of not creating any kind of problem for our neighbors. We are fully cognizant of that. So I assure on behalf of the mosque and CIMIC that there will be no problem if the structure is built. In fact, you will appreciate once if this nice building goes up, and probably you will change some of the opinions that you may still have. So in light of this, I request the Plan Commission to consider approving this. Thank you very much.
All right. Any further questions? Ms. Bindum.
For the gym, you might have mentioned this earlier, so forgive me if I didn't catch that, but is the gym for residents only, or is it open to the public? Is it for students? Who's allowed to use it?
It's for the occupants, the students who will be staying there.
Okay.
Primarily for them, yeah.
So you don't, you're not thinking that there would be a lot more traffic coming to the building for the gym?
No, it's not open to the public. It's only for the students.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anything further?
Can I add something?
You may. Okay. If you will state your name.
Yes.
Thank you. And sign the sheet. Those are our two requirements.
I'm Bridget Wakefield with Gorski Reef Tech Architects. I just wanted to add just one short thing about the shadows. I know everybody seemed a little bit concerned about that, and we didn't have time to do any kind of solar study, but fortunately Jeff Engstrom has supplied us with a little bit of a solar study in his exhibit that he had here. You can see that we talked about the blue roofed building that's 3.5 stories tall, so somewhat similar to the height of our building. You can see how big the shadow is on that. If you look at our site, you can see that that building's not going to get hit by shadow exactly when this was taken. So we know for sure that there are times when that's not going to be in shadow.
But that's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon shadow.
Looks about right. All right. Anything further? Thank you very much. All right, I'll close the public hearing now, and Plan Commissioners, any discussion? I did want to just ask a question if there's of city staff briefly. I understand several of these properties are non-conforming that are neighbors. For example, the 712 property, 704, 702, the ones that are right on the street, are those non-conforming?
That is correct. They are built on within the required front yard setback.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fell?
Chris, the building that's shown is essentially now built right up to the setbacks as we're going to amend them, correct? So that the balconies for the units can only extend, what's our 2'6" into that setback?
They can extend 5 feet into the required
5 feet
setback.
into the setback, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Any further discussion? Mr. Trail?
At the original hearing, was there concern about the amount of pedestrian traffic that would be going back and forth across Busey, and was any discussion made of? I mean, it's happening. I mean, this is an unusual situation since you've got potentially a multi-use pedestrian pathway that would connect the two properties. Probably. It's a general rule you don't want to put pedestrian crossings in the middle of a block, but eventually, if anything comes of it, that's going to happen. I mean, is this an opportunity to utilize that to potentially direct pedestrian traffic between these two properties there rather than, I mean, Western Avenue looks, I drove down it just today, it looks pretty, not exactly like a street. So, I mean, is there an opportunity to do something like that with maybe some signs or things like that? And I also had another quick question, and you guys may have absolutely no idea. Does the city have any intention to make Western one-way? Because I noticed there's a do not enter sign on the Lincoln Avenue entrance to Western.
So in regards to the mid-block crossing, we did discuss this when the issue came up. The city engineer did not want a mid-block crossing exclusively for the entrance of the mosque, but we felt that crossing at Western would work best. You are correct. In the future, when we get the Boneyard Creek pathway installed, we will have to do a mid-block crossing wherever that happens to be. So at that point, it will serve as crossing for the residents going to the mosque and back and forth and such. Do you know about the one-ways? Yeah. Okay, so no plans to change Western to a one-way.
I had a quick little follow-up to the mid-block crossing thing. Is it usual to put handicap parking for a building across a street? And would the long-term interest of this be a little bit better served by a mid-block crossing that would put more of the pathway between the building entrance and the handicap parking under the mosque control, so they could make sure that sidewalks are in in good enough prepare for a wheelchair, because in my neighborhood, I don't think I'd want to navigate the sidewalk in front of my house in a wheelchair.
It is unusual to have handicap accessible parking across the street from its use. But they did contact the state architect's office who oversees this and got a letter that supported it. But again, yeah, I think in the long term, when that path gets installed, I think that will become the de facto crossing for the wheelchairs.
Might help to have the architect comment on there will be a proposed sidewalk on Western, and comment on the condition of the sidewalk on the western side of Busey or the walkway. Any thoughts on somebody going from the handicapped space and crossing? Is the condition of the sidewalks at this time sufficient, or would you be making improvements?
I have to admit, we have not looked at the sidewalks on the west side of Busey, so I'm not sure exactly what condition they are in right now. Obviously, we will, a part of the project will be putting all new sidewalks in along the east side of Busey Avenue.
Further, Ms. Bynum.
The sidewalk, if someone was in a wheelchair and they're trying to access the building, they'll have to go up Busey on the west side and then go to Western and then cross Busey to get.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the plan at this time.
And okay, and what you were saying is to have like a mid-block crossing there so they can just go straight across Busey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, for instance, if there's even a pedestrian curb cut on the west side of Busey, that corner, although it kind of sort of morphs off into no curbing through there. And I guess my concern is what they're going to be ending up doing. If you're in a wheelchair, is basically practically getting out on Western to get across the street. Besides the fact that, since we're allowing, we want to allow this, if we did this, to have the handicap across the street, the more we can put the path within the mosque's purview, the better the option that, we're going to continue to have a path in good condition.
Yeah. It doesn't kind of out of the way, like, if it starts to snow or something, or the weather is really bad for them to have to go around, if the handicap parking's off-site, but.
I believe in the original, when the very original proposal, all the parking was on the annex side. And one of the things the Plan Commission recommended at that time was to move it because of its proximity to Western Avenue and the congestion that was in there. Now, I mean, somebody could make a motion to move the handicap spot back across the street.
Yeah, it's just like one. Are they only required to have one handicap spot?
I think that's right.
Yeah, this use is only required to have one spot. A little background on why the architect wants to move it to the west side of Busey. It's because they were not able to fit it within that front yard without extending onto the city right-of-way. So that would require a right-of-way license agreement with the city.
Would you like to address this one more time? Answer the question. Thank you.
There were a few factors that actually played into wanting to move that parking space. If you have a lone handicap parking space over on its own, it's not going to be maintained as quickly in an event of snow or anything else going on. If it's grouped with the rest of the parking, it's going to be very easy to plow and make sure that it's just as clear. We've also heard from other neighbors that Western is not plowed, at least not one of the first streets that's plowed. And so it's going to be much more likely that it's going to be harder for them to get to their parking space in a snow event when everyone else is going to be able to get to it off of Busey. So we were trying to maintain the best place for people to park, whether they were in a wheelchair or whether they were walking. It is still going to be the closest parking space out of all the parking that's provided for the site to be able to get to the site. So they'll have the very closest one, and that's the regulations that the state have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Otto.
Concerns were raised both by the written submissions and the two gentlemen who addressed the commission about the increase in density. So they're going to have 38 beds in a building of 24,600 feet. If they didn't have the gym, if they simply maxed that out in terms of apartments, about how many people, if they were simply a developer trying to build 24,500 feet of maximum apartments, how many beds would that accommodate?
I'm not sure. We don't, yeah,
I don't
about
know,
twice
maybe
as many,
15?
so.
Mr. Lozer, can I
Total,
ask you,
or
how many
15
beds
more?
do you have in your building? It's
Yeah,
a
right,
similar
actually, yeah, I said,
a footprint of your building on the south side. How many beds do you have in your building?
The building on the south side is 22 units. So let's say 11 of those are doubles. So that would be 22 plus 11 singles. So that's 33 is what I get, beds, which was your question.
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So that would be 33 in that building and 38 in the proposed building.
But is your point that if it weren't a gym, they could fill it with beds?
Well,
and
I'm
increase the
curious
density
because,
further?
I mean, the lot, I mean, could be used simply straight for residential without a
That's it.
gym.
Right, right.
And so it seems like it would be possible to have more density in terms of
Right,
beds
right.
without the gym.
Good point. All right,
Just following up on that, keep in mind that in the design criteria, every bed generates in a normal R5, generates a half of a parking space. That's a requirement. So when you think about a different land use for that, rather than a dormitory, you have to go back to the zoning to see what parking it generates.
Sure.
agreed. Thank you.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Any, Mr. Trail?
I had another quick question about something you said when you were the setback discussion. You said that the average setback right now in Western is 25 feet. When you said that, were you talking only about the south side of Western, or?
Yes, that's only the south side, the block.
Okay,
face.
because I was having difficulty figuring how you get 25 feet with all those buildings on the north side right on the, all right, thank you.
Further discussion? Motions? Ms. Bynum?
Perhaps the architect would comment on whether, how the garbage pickup would work and if it's large enough and how you foresee that happening?
Well, the road is 17 feet, and then the actual enclosure is about another, almost as much distance, 15 feet. So that gives a pretty good ability to turn around. It's not like the enclosure is right up against the property line or over into the setbacks. So that's a good question and probably something we should study. I think that, let me zoom in. So if you look at this, the enclosure is actually set back quite a distance from the road. So being able to turn in and turn around, I actually think it's not as difficult as maybe it has been made out to be. You know, some of these vehicles are quite large, and you know, I think it's something we can look at, and it's probably a good comment to kind of verify how it will be done.
Technically, the public hearing's closed, so I'm not comfortable with I mean, thank you for answering the questions, but we're not going to take just general commentary from the audience. People behind you are
Okay.
raising their hands. That's
Thank
why.
you.
Sorry about that. But thank you for answering the question.
I'll comment on two things. I mean,
Mr.
typically in terms of the garbage, typically in a situation like this, the garbage truck will just drive down the street, they'll open the gate and they'll wheel it out and dump it. Garbage truck doesn't have to back up. They take the 5-yard dumpster, they physically pull it out, attach to their truck, and then push it back in. So that's not really an issue. And my other comment is really about the bulk of the building, and I think the way that the architects have handled the height of the building, even with a 12-foot increase in the height, is I think less of an impact than it could be if they stuck to a 3-story building with a pitched roof and tried to stick the top floor in the pitched roof, because they could get, to the peak of their building, instead of a 47-foot building, they could get a 60-foot building. They could make it worse by not making the roof flat. So I think their solution actually is the least of the evils of making the building that tall. So they could have created a much greater impact on the neighbors, especially to the north, with no increase in height. So I think what they've done is actually better than not having their 12-foot increase.
Anything further? Any motions?
I move whatever it is you read out.
Plan case number CW 201401. Mr. Otto moves the motion. Sort of. To recommend. Yeah. With the conditions.
It's
Oh, no, we're just
It's
approving.
approval.
That's right. This is final approval. Yep, this is final approval.
So I recommend that we approve the permit subject to the conditions 1 through 10 enumerated on page 6.
Moved by Mr. Otto, seconded by Ms. Bynum. If there's no further discussion, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Bynum? Mr. Fell? Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins? Mr. Otto? Mr. Trail? And Mr. Petrie?
That motion is approved, and that's a final approval. As we said, no further action required. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your testimony. Now moving to plan case number 2223, CP14. A request to adopt the Active Choices Champaign County Greenways and Trails Plan as an amendment to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan.
Okay, thank you. So this is a case the Plan Commission has seen before kind of recently. Yeah.
Could I ask the audience to take your discussions outside, please? Yeah, thank you. That's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I think you're safe.
All right. This is a request by the zoning administrator for Plan Commission and City Council to adopt the Active Choices Champaign County Greenways and Trails Plan as an amendment to the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan. The Greenways and Trails Plan contains maps, goals, and a project list for development of off-street trails and greenways throughout Champaign County. The future trails map will temporarily replace Appendix C, Greenways and Trails map in the comprehensive plan, as the the guiding document for future greenways and trails in the city. The plan was compiled by the Champaign County Regional Plan Commission over 2 years, guided by a couple of policy and technical committees, staffed with staff members from municipalities, including the city of Urbana. The RPC held 4 public workshops in which various members of the public gave their input on the plan. It should be noted the upcoming 2014 Urbana Bicycle Master Plan will supersede the Active Choices Greenways and Trails Plan as the city's official bicycle planning policy document upon its completion in a couple months here. The Greenways and Trails Plan that we're looking at provides a wider overview of proposed trails for the entire county, and it's a document that gets filed with the Illinois Department of Transportation. But the city's Urbana Bicycle Master Plan, it provides a more detailed study of the community's vision for bicycle planning within our borders. And it has more updated and a little more detailed maps for where we want to place our bicycle infrastructure. So the Plan Commission will be seeing that bicycle master plan hopefully in the next month or two. So Plan Commission has already seen this case and forwarded it to City Council back in July. City Council, at their meeting, they reviewed the case, and they noted that we had missed a step in our review of this plan. We had not brought it to the Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission for their official approval and review. So City Council at that point sent it back to the Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, and now we kind of had to start the process over again. The BPAC, Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Commission, they reviewed the plan last month, and they basically, the BPAC decided that they agree that the upcoming bicycle master plan should be the controlling document for the city's bicycle and trail planning. And they recommended that the city adopt the Greenways and Trails Plan in the meantime as it is without any substantial changes. So at this point, staff would encourage the Plan Commission to once again forward this case to City Council with a recommendation for approval to be adopted as part of our comprehensive plan, with the understanding that it will be replaced by the city's own bicycle master plan in the upcoming months.
Any questions for Mr. Engstrom? Mr. Trail?
Am I to understand it's going to be superseded in whole or in part by the new bicycle master plan?
So what we're adopting from the Greenways and Trails Plan are these future conditions maps, which show the future location of bikeways and trails. So that's the part that will be adopted, and that part will also be superseded when we adopt the master plan.
Wouldn't it be a less complicated process and for future interpreters to simply adopt the relevant portions of this into the bicycle master plan and approve it as one document?
So we've got, it's just bad timing is what happened here. We have this Greenways and Trails Plan, which for a long time was the county's and many municipalities within the county, it was their main bike and trail planning document. Since then, we've started doing our own bicycle master plan. So it's this Greenways and Trails plan is still needed for the overall county, a lot more than it's needed for Urbana. That being said, we still do adopt it because it's our system of plans. Basically, our comprehensive plan, we have different types of plans that we recognize and adopt as part of our plan. So this county plan, we adopt it as a not a city strategic plan, but as an outside agency plan. And that's kind of the whole reason for the action.
Ms. Tyler?
Well, I hope I'm not off base, but the kind of our comprehensive plan is the mother plan, and we were careful when we adopted this in 2005 to have a couple other documents encompassed within it as elements that came along. First was a 2002 downtown plan that was adopted as an element, and then that was replaced by the 2012 downtown plan as an element of the comprehensive plan. We encourage some documents to be elements of the comprehensive plan because it adds to the impact and the importance of the plan, and for things such as obtaining grants or showing compliance, we find it very helpful to have some of these subsidiary or other plans adopted as well. So that's the thinking in adopting the Greenways. What you'll see, this Appendix C was like one of the earlier versions of the county's Greenways and Trails plan. We wanted it in the comprehensive plan because we wanted to be able to require some of these Greenways and Trails perhaps as part of development, and to show granting agencies that was part of an adopted plan. Since 2005, we've started doing bicycle master plans. We also want to be able to adopt those as elements of our comprehensive plan, again, so that we can integrate them into development, obtain grants, etc. My view is that the bicycle master plan is a different type of plan than the countywide trail and bikeway plan or Greenways plan, that this is a more of a recreational document, and the bicycle master plan is more about bicycles as urban transport in the city. So I think that when this is adopted as an element of our comprehensive plan, that replaces this old map that we have in here. Then when we adopt our updated bicycle master plan, and it might show one or two alignments, like along Broadway Avenue, frankly, that differ, because that will have been adopted later, that alignment will rule. However, I think there's still some things on this map that won't be shown on our bicycle master plan. I might be wrong there, but I see some green spaces there that may not be on the bicycle master plan. So given that, I think it's proper and fine to adopt both of these in this sequence, and we will look to the most recent adoption, and we will realize that Broadway Avenue does not have bike lanes. It is a bicycle-friendly street, or what do we call the, you can ride down the middle of the street like I do. It's a Sharrows instead of a bike lane. I hope that helps.
All right, well, I just restated a little, make sure I think, what you're saying is these are not actually, this will not completely overlap with the bicycle plan. And you think it contains important elements. So it wasn't really, when you said that it would almost immediately be superseded by another plan, they're not coterminous, they don't cover exactly the same, but you're simply saying that you want to adopt both, but when they come in conflict, you're going to consider for Urbana the bicycle master plan to control. Is that what you're saying?
I couldn't have said it better.
Okay,
Excellent.
all right.
Mr. Hopkins?
Okay. Some of you have heard all this before, but I'm going to argue that we should not adopt this. We need to have two much more distinct, and we've had this conversation before, ways of distinguishing between things that we adopt as city policy and plans that we acknowledge that we know about and are taking into account. And as an example, in this feature conditions map that we are being asked to adopt, it shows the new Olympian Drive going to High Cross Road. And it shows that by our adopting it, we are planning not only to build a bikeway there, but that we have changed our comprehensive plan and made a decision to extend Olympian Drive to High Cross Road, which we have not done. And therefore, I think if we claim to have adopted this plan, we will have adopted a plan that is in direct conflict with other city policies. So I think we can acknowledge this plan, that we've read it, but I would oppose adopting it as part of the comprehensive plan.
Are these the only two options that we have, is to approve or deny?
Can I just respond? Okay, the Olympian Drive has been phased. When we went to the county, the choice was to fund just the western portion. But if you look in our comprehensive plan and you look in the long-range transportation plan, which guide our future arterial development, it does show it extending eastward. You can look right here on appendix in this mobility.
But it's an option. It's Olympian Drive termination at US 45 or continuation to High Cross Road. It was a very explicit decision in the record of adopting the plan that that decision had not been made.
I think the plan that guides roadways, which would be this, would rule, as well as the LRTP, not something that talks about bikeways and trails.
Okay, but
And I think the danger of not adopting these alignments is that we tie the comprehensive plan and its elements into our development regulations explicitly in the subdivision ordinance. If we don't adopt this map, for example, we lose the ability to require those alignments as part of development review. So we're using a provision in the state statute that allows the community to use the official plan, the official map, to mandate these alignments. But I don't think there's any intention here to override our mobility map.
okay, but if we're going to back our development regulations as an official map argument, and we have adopted plans that are in direct conflict, then I don't think we're creating good backing. If we need to adopt things that are in this that we want, given that there are things that we haven't really talked about, then I think we should adopt them as part of the bicycle master plan, or they should be added as amendments to our comp plan.
I guess I would encourage, to answer Mr. Fitch's question, if you see an annotation here that you think is in conflict with our mobility map, then I would offer an amendment. Now, the first one, map 28, says future Olympian Drive side path.
Are you on the project list now? Or
I'm
the
just
map?
looking at the maps.
I don't think I want us to get into the business of amending the plan. I mean, there's so many places we would go through there and suggest different things and things of that nature.
But that's what we're being asked to do. We're being asked to adopt an amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Well, I'm wondering if we can come up with some kind of conditional adoption that
It's-
doesn't adopt the parts we don't like.
It's an element. It's an element, not an amendment, actually,
Well, I
which
still
is a
like the word
different,
adopt, I
it's an
think.
element of the plan, not an amendment.
I agree
Well-
with your word acknowledge. I like that better, but. How have we handled this in the past? Did we sort of deny approval, but then go on record that we acknowledge it, and the city should follow it where possible. I mean, I'm fishing for an option here that doesn't involve us going through it and amending the plan, and it's been, months in the making, and we might want to start amending it in a million places. You know what I mean? Mr. Trail.
I think the system plan basic idea is great. But to me, to the extent that you start and maybe come with different words for how controlling it is. Because as someone who was involved in doing whatever, and they're going to look to them for guidance, right? If you look at a whole set of plans, and to the extent that they're in conflict, or that they're in conflict, or that they're scope is a little more, or scope is a little less, or whatever, if it's not increasing the clarity of, we're trying to explain, these plans, we're trying to explain to people what we're doing in our policies. Theoretically, that's the whole idea. Well, but if it really is, I'm believing, I'm not familiar enough with this one to even offer amendments, so what we support and what we don't. But if they're not in enough conformance with each other that would increase the clarity in the mind of someone who's looking at these plans to get guidance, but is actually going to create confusion, I don't think we want to adopt things that don't mesh together well. I don't know that that's the case, because obviously you seem much more familiar with specifics of this, but if we're almost immediately going to supersede it with some things, maybe something like acknowledge or something is a better suggestion.
Any other thoughts, Mr. Hopkins? I mean, is there,
We need to figure out a way that we can do this, because the legal backing to make development deals or like what we just did, for example, is important.
It is, yeah.
But it's not clear to me that adopting this, if it's not actually our bicycle route plan, but it's got all these routes marked for the city of Urbana. And it's not actually our doing, it's the county's doing.
We're participants. It's a countywide process. I do think that it should be consistent. The problem is that we have a really old Appendix C, and we have an opportunity to update it, but apparently it's not a perfect map. The designation for Olympian is not as clear or as intentional as the other one, and that's something, thank you for bringing that up. We have a problem with Broadway. We will probably have other issues that come up.
Yeah, see, and that's what I'm talking about.
So it's weighing, and I do think it's adopting this map or these sets of maps as replacement for this old map. If we do that, then we have a better chance to get funding for some of these greenways.
But we're going to put those are going to be in the bikeway plan as well, yes? No?
My sense is that if something's part of a comprehensive plan, it has a better chance of getting funding.
Okay, but the bikeway plan...
And of being required to be built by the by the developer.
Right, I understand. The bikeway plan, we intend to adopt as an element of the comprehensive plan. Is that correct, or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so if there are things in this plan that will not be in the bikeway plan, that we actually want to be able to enforce, or enforce is not quite the right word, but use as backing in a development agreement or whatever, then we should put them in. And one of the things that, Olympian Drive east of 45 is not currently in the city, am I correct?
No.
It is not in the city.
Yeah, none of Olympian Drive's in the city.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So if the bicycle plan is only within city limits, and is that the case or not?
No, I think the bicycle plan does show some
In the mile and a half?
paths, yes.
Okay, all right.
It's,
So,
no, I mean, it's not complete throughout the mile and a half, is it?
No, it's only along the edge of the city.
right, okay. But so, as an example, if the bikeway on Olympian Drive that shows up in this map on a new Olympian Drive east of 45 is not covered in the bikeway plan, then this plan, by the presumptions of conflict resolutions of inconsistency, would still hold. And I don't think we've made that decision.
Not to quibble, but if you look at map 28, which shows the most
Well, I don't know what
detail
map 28
there.
is.
In our comprehensive plan?
Oh,
I mean, we're really looking at map
the first one.
20, okay, if you look at map 28, it doesn't
Yeah.
show it east of 45. If you look at map 29, the color changes. It goes from green
Oh,
to black.
Oh, okay.
And then it says future Olympian Drive. I mean, you could put a question mark there.
No,
I think what rules is go to our mobility map.
Yeah, But
If you go to our mobility map, then it talks about, you got the brown arrow, and the arrow for number 2 is Olympian Drive termination at US Route 45 or continuation to High Cross Road. So there's, and I think that's important to point that out, but I don't know, I mean, it's a possible future, but this is not the roadway map. So I don't know that they're necessarily inconsistent unless somebody wanted to distort the meaning of the one map.
Can we make some kind of a statement or amend the motion to make it clear that when the county plan, when this plan conflicts with any of our plans carry? Which is essentially what you're saying about the bicycle plan.
I think that would help.
Do you think it?
What's the appropriate way to word that?
I was going to ask Mr. Hopkins.
Can we say that on a plan that hasn't been adopted yet? Some
Well,
future plan we're
If
gonna
we agree
adopt.
to it, it's part of the record now. I don't know if it needs to be actually part of the motion or amended, what would you call it? Yeah.
Well,
But how can we say that the thing that we're going to adopt in the future will supersede this when we don't know what this thing in the future is yet?
I think that we could,
Bicycle plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
What
point.
we're really saying, aren't we saying that the bikeway plan is an Urbana product and will control? This is, well, it was created with participation from Urbana planners and whatever. Isn't really an Urbana plan, but it includes Urbana. I mean, it's suggestive. I mean, it's part of the overall county plan that, yes, we want to cooperate with as often as we can. We want people to know that we're doing that, but it doesn't mean we're taking this control. I don't know how to word that.
Well, that's why I like the word acknowledge better, but,
So,
yeah. But,
so this is the county plan, and we're saying that when the two, on our Urbana plan and the county plan conflict, we're going to recognize this, but we're going to follow the Urbana plan.
Well, I think Mr. Hopkins fears that that wouldn't hold water. I mean, if we adopt it as part of our comprehensive plan, then yeah.
can I help maybe? I think that we do want to get, well, staff does want to get this plan that we did participate in. Maybe it has a few flaws in it. We would like to get it accepted, adopted by the city. We haven't been able to do that. We've been trying for some months. We would prefer, for the reasons we've talked about, actually being able to implement it, to adopt it as an element of our comprehensive plan. We could, in the ordinance that the council would use to adopt it, to spell out, except where there are alignment conflicts with the bicycle master plan, 2014, as it may be amended, and the comprehensive plan 2005, we could spell out Olympian Drive, and then that way we can adopt the parts of this that we agree with and will benefit from, and not have to take the whole cake. If you,
Doesn't the system of plans literature have language about the degree of, these are advisory plans, these are actually plans that need, there are like levels of plan and how much they control? Isn't
Yeah,
there
we have
language
good-
from that we could use here?
perhaps?
We do, some regional plans, we do vote to accept them rather than bring them into the
Exactly,
comprehensive plan.
yeah.
But this one, because it was a map in the original comprehensive plan, we thought we should adopt at least as an element.
Yeah, there's two reasons. We've already included it as a map. We'd like to update the map, number one. Number two, it includes alignments. Alignments are important if you want to get them built, to actually have them as part of the official plan. And for two reasons, for grants, and number two, the statutory authority to extract that development. If you just accept it, then it's just a policy document. It's not enforceable. It's not necessarily implementable on the ground as easily.
So you're suggesting we say accept rather than adopt?
My preference
they'll
would
go
be
the other way.
for you to adopt it with these exclusions that we that's what I'm recommending, and I think that,
With a list of exclusions today?
No.
No.
Unless we blanket exclude everything that conflicts with any urbana plan.
Which
That's,
that's
yeah.
a judgment call, whether
Sure.
those conflict.
I think, honestly, that the more we've talked about this, I think we deny and let the city council sort it out. I don't know.
It doesn't-
So, Ms. Tyler, are you saying that we should adopt it and then the city council, like, when, in the ordinance, that they can spell out what it is that we're saying?
all I'm saying is that we can wordsmith that as part of the ordinance and make it enforceable, that the council could adopt this as an element of the comprehensive plan, but have the ordinance be clear that it doesn't govern when there's conflicts with our bicycle master plan. We do know of one conflict, and it certainly wouldn't govern in terms of Olympian Drive, which is a road, not a greenway or a trail, which should be obvious, but I think it helps to, we do have one map that has a label that's not very good. Those are probably the only issues. Now, it may be, and the city council really wants to take the plan commission guidance, especially on something like a planning document. It's not going to be comfortable for them to adopt a planning document that's not been recommended by the plan commission. They may see other alignments that they would take exception to, but the two that I've heard of so far was Broadway tonight, the one annotation on Olympian, and are there others that?
There were a couple of minor other ones. I don't have a list of them all.
Going the other way, go ahead, Mr. Hoffman.
Another question. On the list of projects, there partly because I don't have a good sort of top-of-the-head sense of what these projects actually consist of. It seems to me like a huge number of projects, with a very large number of them as high and high time, which I love the irony of that use of high for time. I assume it
what
means
does that mean?
it's high time to do it. But I'm not really sure what it means under time as high, medium, and low. But is there some basis? Is this related to our CIP? Are these projects something that we actually know we're adopting?
Yes, so all these projects do come from, for example, the Urbana Bicycle Master Plan and from our CIP and from other plans such as Park District plans. But yes, they are identified projects that are probably not all budgeted or scheduled, but they are all projects that we have on the horizon.
Okay.
Bill?
But this is county priority list, not an Urbana priority list. We're acknowledging the priorities of the county, but not necessarily adopting the priorities.
I think all the ones
These
listed
are
here are
stat-
Urbana.
This
Yeah.
was, do you want to explain the group? The technical group?
Yes, so Urbana staff, a former planner, Rebecca Bird, participated in compiling this plan. So she did have input, especially her and Craig Schonkweiler, our city engineer, assistant engineer. They did have input in assigning these priorities. So it is a county plan, but basically it is the priorities that we have recommended they put into it.
So it's a county plan that they just said, what priority do you want to put on this? We'll put anything you want.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So the bikeways plan will include the same list?
Yes, with better wording.
And I hope a better color scheme, too, since it's impossible to actually read the map because you can't distinguish the colors.
Do we want to put a formal condition on the approval, or do we want to deny it? Or do we want to approve it and let the record speak for itself? I guess those are really kind of three options. Ms. Bindum?
We could approve it, and then the city council and the ordinance would kind of be more detailed regarding what it is that we want. So we would just approve it here, and then the city council would have to say.
We could either do that, the city staff has heard us, and they could, bring that to the council debate, or we could formally say we approve it with the condition that city staff will identify any inconsistencies with Urbana plans and include those in its presentation and the options for the council to act on. That would be another option, I think. Or we could, just deny it and let the council read the record and find out why we denied it, which is for the reasons Mr. Hopkins been articulating.
So I'm trying to come up with something here.
Me too.
Building on this. A slightly different possibility would be to recommend that this be adopted as an element of the comprehensive plan, to be completely superseded by the bikeways plan. And
Yeah.
acknowledging that some things in this plan may be inconsistent with other elements of the comprehensive plan.
Condition?
You expressed that there's important consequences to not adopting.
I think that,
Just a little short, clear idea.
Okay.
If we decided not to adopt it, what are the consequences?
I think that this is a plan that ideally the Plan Commission would have been involved in and felt ownership of. And obviously that has not happened. It's been some time in the making, but as I understand it, this is a grant from the state and the Regional Planning Commission, not the county per se, RMPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, took on, I think this is the third or the fourth one that they've done on behalf of us. And the state funded this plan for us. And we participated at a staff level to the best of our abilities, with a planner and an engineer. And it took some time. Now it's a little bit out of date. That's one of our problems. So I think it would send a pretty anti-MPO, anti-planning message for the Plan Commission to decide, oh, we're just going to recommend denial. And I think that sends a message. Would make it hard for our city council to adopt it with that coming from the Plan Commission. So I think that's awkward, number one. And number two, we talked about ways to cobble together, an approval that somehow accounts for the fact that our bicycle master plan is a little more up to date and a little more detailed. I don't know that the bicycle master plan, I think there are still elements that will be left out if we allow the bicycle master plan to simply supersede it all because there's territory left out. Plus, this is not a bicycle master plan, it's a greenways and trails. I have a fantasy someday that we'll have recreational trails in Champaign County near Urbana that I would love to see, and I'd love to see a funding source and a plan that supports that. And I think that's why, it maybe was part of the 2005 plan. So, these are the pros and cons. I mean, I think you've talked about some good choices. You could back off of, the alignment and just do an acceptance, which is one way to deal with systems of plans. You could qualify the adoption like we've talked about. But I hope that you don't move to deny it. I think that's going to create awkwardness for this particular project, but also in the future. Sort of like an anti-planning statement.
Still, like a little bit of practical. What's a greenway of some type is under consideration? One of the trails that you would really love to see. What would be the practical effect of the state with any sort of funding organization? You're alluding to the idea that our not adopting this wholeheartedly would create some obstacle to funding, to state approval, to...
I know for OSLOG grants, having it in your adopted plan is a requirement. We might be able to kind of pull the wool over their eyes and say, well, it's in this county, in the Greenways plan, and that might be sufficient. Not sure. But I do know for a fact, though, that connection to the statute is just for the official map. What the statute calls the official map. And if these maps are not adopted as part of the comprehensive plan, they're not the official map of the city that we can use to enforce our development regulations. So yes, these are a little bit speculative, but we may have a residential development in this area that is right adjacent to one of these greenways. By adopting this map, we can use our subdivision ordinance to get that greenway as part of the development lawfully. I think that's a pretty good thing to be able to do. It's a beautiful area in North Urbana, and I think there's some areas that would really benefit from some recreational use.
Just the way you're saying, even if there are some flaws, there are more benefits to adopting it.
Absolutely. Every plan gets a little bit out of date. Every plan has errors in it. And, I really do trust our Plan Commission, City Council, and staff to know what our intent is and what's the most recent, most up-to-date. If there's questions, to come back. Look, seek clarification. Do a further amendment.
I've got
Mr. Otto.
Wouldn't the sequencing of adopting things, so the upcoming bikeways plan, since it is the most recent thing adopted, by that fact supersedes things that have been adopted prior to that. So even without referencing that this will be superseded by some future plan, just by the fact that chronologically that would be the last word?
It would be the last word for two reasons, because it's more recent and it's more specific, and then that's what rules.
Go ahead, Ms. Bynum.
So we wouldn't need a clause that says it would be
Well, by that logic, this map would supersede the map in our strategic plan.
Adopted now, and if
Right.
it was adopted before it would supersede, which I think is
Right,
concern.
that's right. So you're correct. But
Currently, it has no status because it hasn't been adopted by the city. So it has no status.
what?
This Greenway
Oh,
plan
right,
has
right.
no
Yeah,
status.
right, right.
Would it be possible for staff to create an enumeration conflict
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
without, spending 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Major conflict.
Yeah, it might delay the process, but I don't think it would delay it beyond the adoption of the bicycle master plan.
Is there any problem with us postponing a final vote until next?
That's for us to decide. I mean, if you're not comfortable voting yes or no on it, then,
I'm just saying there's no deadline that's going to pass.
or yes with
between now and
conditions,
then.
or,
I know
Is there a deadline? No, I mean, we can hold it open and look and see if there's anything else that comes up, and also work on some motion language that might be comfortable. I think if there's confusion or concerns, I would almost always recommend a continuation, unless somebody's trying to buy some real estate or something, but I don't think there's any reason, there's no.
none of us would.
Yeah. There's no deadline that we know
Is
of.
that-
We kind of missed the initial set of deadlines because it's already been sent to the state. So we're a little bit behind, but
Oh,
we're trying to do
yeah.
what we need
Sure.
to do.
Well,
Can I make a motion then of this type, that we postpone a vote on adoption pending review of a list of any identifiable discrepancies?
yeah, we can continue this case to future meeting of the Plan Commission. I don't know if we need to vote on that or not. We might as well. It sounded like a motion. Did anybody second it? Second. All right. Moved by Mr. Trail, second by Ms. Bynum, a motion to continue this to a future public hearing.
Question on our
Mr. Fell.
continuation. Does that mean we have to continue to the next meeting, and if they're not prepared, do we just continue?
No,
again?
to a future.
Any future
Yeah.
meeting?
But you can hold, it has a public
Yeah.
hearing, and I think you can hold that open in case other people want to come and speak to it. And so it would appear on the next agenda, and if we're not ready, it can be continued again. That way, we don't have to advertise it again because we've actually had to do
Agreed.
that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep, I think we're okay. Okay, let's do a let's do a roll call.
Mr. Fell?
It's-
Yes.
Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Trail?
Yes.
Mr. Petrie? And Ms. Bynum?
That motion passes. We'll continue it to a future Plan Commission meeting. We don't have any new business. We don't have any audience participation. We don't, which is surprising. We don't have a staff report. We don't have a study session.
Oh,
We do have a staff report. Wait a minute. I almost,
yeah,
I know.
just real quickly, I wanted to notice and give a notice of our appreciation for Corey Buttry for joining the Plan Commission.
Absolutely, welcome.
He's a local resident who's got some education in planning, so he'll be a great addition. For past cases, the Henson project and Southwind RAS were approved by City Council, those special use permits. And upcoming notice, we'll be holding a joint meeting of Plan Commission, BPAC, and Sustainability Commission on October 30th to discuss the Champaign County Long-Range Transportation Plan.
It's the same plan we did the study session on, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Anything further? In that case, we're adjourned.